All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're decoding Michael Porter's frameworks to help you completely master the mechanics of market competition. Whether you're steering a massive global corporation, grinding away at a new startup, or honestly just trying to figure out why certain brands totally dominate your daily life, understanding the battlefield, that's half the victory right there. We're going to look really closely at generic competitive strategies, and specifically how they fit so perfectly into the larger puzzle of Porter's broader frameworks. But hey, before we tackle the heavy academic models, let's break the ice a bit. In one of our video sources, instructor Brian E. Porter introduces industry analysis by playfully reminding his students that, well, they're getting a double dose of Porter wisdom today. He actually clarifies he is not Michael Porter from Harvard, but jokes that getting 2 Professor Porters for the price of 1 is just a stellar deal. It's a great little reminder that while these strategy frameworks are absolutely serious business, learning how to apply them doesn't have to be totally dry. So here's our roadmap for today. 1. The strategic battlefield. 2. Porter's 5 forces. 3. The strategist playbook. 4. The 4 generic strategies. And 5. A quick Walmart reality check. Starting off with part 1, the strategic battlefield, the macro environment. Because obviously, before you can even decide how to fight, you've got to understand the forces actually pressing it on you. Michael Porter's 5 forces beautifully maps out these external pressure points. You've got the threat of new entry coming from above, supplier power pushing it on one side, buyer power on the other, the threat of substitution creeping up from below, and right there in the dead center, the intensity of competitive rivalry. It's the whole shebang. Moving right along to part 2, Porter's 5 forces, industry attractiveness. Analyzing these external forces is literally the most essential first step you can take. Why? Because their collective strength directly determines your ultimate profit potential. Think about it. If buyers have high power, they're just going to relentlessly demand lower prices. If substitutes are super easy to find, well, there's a hard ceiling on what you can charge. The really successful managers out there are actively assessing these 5 pillars every single day to find exactly where those pressures are the weakest. And once we wrap our heads around that massive macro industry tornado, we pivot straight to firm positioning. We're basically shifting from looking at the broad forces of the entire industry to focusing on how a single, isolated company defends itself in that crazy environment. Basically, how do you actually carve out a sustainable advantage when those 5 forces are constantly pushing against you? Which brings us to part 3, the strategist's playbook, business-level strategies. This is where Porter drops his core, myth-busting argument, and it is a real game changer. True competitive strategy is all about finding a highly unique position. It is not about trying to do the exact same things your rivals do, just slightly better. No, it is fundamentally a matter of being deliberately, unapologetically different. Let's look at part 4, the 4 generic strategies, the 4 paths to win. To actually achieve that distinct difference, literally any business can deploy one of 4 core strategies. You really just have to make 2 simple choices. On the vertical axis, you decide if your advantage comes from having the absolute lowest costs or from offering totally unique value. And horizontally, you decide if you're targeting a massive, broad market or a narrow, highly specific niche. The intersection of those choices, that gives us our 4 distinct paths. Let's break these down, right? First up, cost leadership. This is all about ruthless, internal, operational efficiency. It is not just slapping cheap prices on your products, and that's a huge, vital distinction. If your internal ops aren't highly efficient, just lowering your prices is going to completely nuke your profit margin. A true cost leader wins because they have superior internal systems that allow them to actually sustain those lower costs over the long haul. Now, while those cost leaders are busy stripping away every single extra frill to maximize margins through sheer efficiency, a differentiation strategy goes the exact opposite route. It creates a premium customer value proposition that totally justifies charging more. You're building unique, highly valued features into your product. Maybe it's stunning design, mind-blowing customer service, or some crazy cutting-edge tech. Whatever it is, it makes the customer incredibly happy to hand over a premium. But hey, what if a massive broad market just isn't your goal? Well, that's where the focus strategies come into play. They let a business target a highly specific, super narrow market segment, a niche, and serve it incredibly well, totally ignoring outside buyers. You can either be a cost-focused player, offering the absolute lowest costs specifically within that tiny niche, or a differentiation-focused player, offering highly specialized features tailored exactly to that narrow little group. So the absolutely critical takeaway here, the profound danger of failing to choose. If you try to have the highest quality, the absolute most unique features, and the rock-bottom lowest prices, yeah, you're probably going to achieve exactly none of those things. You end up dangerously stuck in the middle, with no real competitive advantage whatsoever. Let's ground this with Part 5, the Walmart Reality Check, Strategy and Action. To pull this heavy academic theory back down to earth, let's just look at Walmart's incredible resilience during the 2020 pandemic. Tracing their timeline, you can see exactly how they leaned heavily into their cost leadership scale and supply chain muscle during a completely unprecedented global crisis. By March and April of 2020, data showed their shopping app was literally the top downloaded app in the country. Their grocery app saw a mind-blowing 460% growth in average daily downloads by April, and by May 2021, their operating income had surged by nearly 27%. That's wild. So how on earth did they pull that off? By combining really strict safety protocols with completely unmatched operational efficiency. Because they had already fully mastered the internal machinery required to be a broad cost leader, they didn't just survive the intense pressure of the crisis, they actively expanded their market share while everyone else was scrambling. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to evaluate your own company, your startup, or even just your favorite brand. Have they picked a distinct generic strategy to actually win? Or are they stranded on the battlefield, dangerously stuck in the middle? Take a hard look, choose your position, and own it.